Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Anthony Bahada. I'm 21 years old and I live in Barangay Sibariwan in the town of Dumaraw. I graduated senior high school at Mayor Ramon A. Binhamin Senior National High School as an academic awardee. I am also the former associate editor of the Radiance, our former school publication, and as well as the lead photojournalist of the said publication. And in line with this field, I also became a freelance photographer up to date. And at this moment, I'm going to discuss to you the weights of the components for the different grade levels and subjects, and as well as the grade computation. So there are three components that a student need to accomplish and need to undergo in order to pass and qualify for the next grade level. These are the written work, performance tasks, and lastly, the quarterly assessment. The percentages vary across clusters of subjects. When we say clusters of subjects, these are the subjects that are related to each other, just like, for example, the language, the Araling Panlipunan or AP, and the Edukasyong Pagpapahalaga or ESP belong to one cluster and have the same grade percentages for written work, performance tasks, and quarterly assessment. The science and math are another cluster with the same component percentages. Now if you look at the table, or the table 4, the weights of the components for grades 1 to 10, the first cluster, which are the subjects languages, AP, and ESP, are having 30% percentage in written work, 50% in performance task, and 20% in the quarterly assessment. In the second cluster, which is the science and mathematics, the written work there is rated 40%. The performance task is 40% also, but the quarterly assessment is rated 20%. Now on the third cluster, which is the MAPE and the EPP or TLE, the written work is 20%, the performance task is 60%, and the quarterly assessment is also 20%. The same goes to the two clusters. The third component is the quarterly assessment. From the word suggests, quarterly assessment means the assessment of the student every quarter, and in high school level, we call it as grading periods. There are 4 quarters every year. Now, in this component, all the clusters are given the same exact percentages based on the knowledge and understanding of a student in a specific subject. Scores are recorded quantitatively as the same set of exams are given to all the students of the same group. In the table 5, it presents the weights of the components for the senior high school subjects, which are grouped into core subjects, second, all other subjects, applied and specialization, and work immersion of the academic track, and lastly, all other subjects, applied and specialization, and work immersion, research, exhibit, and performance. An analysis of these figures revealed that among the components, performance tasks have the highest percentage contribution to the grade. This means that the DepEd's grading system consistently put more emphasis on the application of learned concepts and skills. As what you can see on the table 5, that entitled Weights of the Components for Senior High School, the core subjects are given 25% in the written work, 50% in performance tasks, and 25% in quarterly assessment, while the all other subjects, the work immersion, research, business enterprise, simulation, exhibit, and performance, in written work, they are given 25%, performance task 45%, quarterly assessment 30%. Now, in the TVL track, or the Technical Vocational and Livelihood Program, The sports, arts, and design track are given 35%, 40% in performance tasks, 25% in quarterly assessment. While in work immersion, research, exhibit, and performance, take note that this is under the technical, vocational, and livelihood track. In written work, it is 20%, performance tasks 60%, and quarterly assessment 20%. Now let's move on to the steps in computation of the grades. So the computation of the grades is based on the DepEd Order number 8 series of 2015. So as you can see on the table, just follow what I am reading. So step number 1, get the total score for each component. Just like for example, in the written work, we have written work from week 1 up to week 7. So therefore, we have 7 written works. Now in written work number 1, a learner earned 18 points or 18 points, and the highest possible score in the first written work is 20. On the second, the student gained 22%, and the highest possible score is 25%. And for the written work number 3, the student got 20 raw score, and the highest possible score is 20 also. Therefore, the student got the perfect score. On the written work number 4, the learner gained 17 points, and the highest possible score here is 20 points. On the written work number 5, the student got 23 points, and the highest possible score here is 25 points, therefore 2 mistakes. In written work number 6, the student gained 26 points, and the highest possible score is 30%. And for the last written work or written work number 7, the student got 19 points, and the highest possible score in written work number 7 is 20. Therefore, the student got 1 mistake. So all in all, the student got 145 total points, and the total highest possible score is 160 points. The same process goes to the performance tasks. So in performance tasks, let's take for example, we have 6 performance tasks that a learner need to accomplish. So in performance task number 1, the student or a student got 12 points, and the highest possible score in that performance task number 1 is 15 points. In performance task number 2, the student got 13 points out of 15, and on the third performance task, the student got 19 out of 25, and in performance task number 4, the student got 15 out of 20, and in performance task number 5, the student got 16 out of 20, and in performance task 6, and the last performance task for the first quarter, the student got 25 out over 25 or perfect score. The total learner's raw score in performance task is 100, and the highest possible score is 129. The same process goes to the quarterly assessment. Just like for example, the learner got 40 points during their first quarter exam, and the highest possible score is 50 points. Now, the second step is divide the total raw score by the highest possible score, then multiply it by the quotient multiply the quotient by 100. Let's take for example, percentage score is equal to 145 over 60 times 100%. Take note that this is only for the written score. And the written score of a student is 90.63. The same process applies to the performance task. We just have to get the percentage score, we just have to divide the raw score by the highest possible score, and then to be multiplied to 100%. And in performance task, the student got 83.3. The same process applies to the quarterly assessment. Just divide the raw score to the highest possible score, then multiply by 100, and then we got 80%. For step number 3, convert percentage scores to weighted scores. Then multiply the percentage score by the weight of the component indicated in Table 4 and Table 5. Now let's take for example, the written work for English grade 4 is 30%. And the weighted score is 90.63 times 0.3. Take note that we need to convert the percentage into decimal points to get the weighted scores. And then the weighted scores must be equal to the percentage score and multiplied by the weight of the component indicated on or in the table 4 and 5. The same process applies to the performance task. However, please take note that the percentages or the weight of the component varies. Okay, so in performance task for English in grade 4 is 50%. So therefore, we just need to multiply the percentage scores to the weighted or to the weight of the component. So 50% must be converted into decimal points so that we can get the answer 41.67. The same process applies to the quarterly assessment for English grade 4. However, please take note again that the percentages of the component or the weight of the component varies. So in quarterly assessment, the weight or the percentage here is 20%. So to get the weighted scores or WS, we just have to multiply the percentage scores to the weight of the component, to the percentage of the weight of the component of the subject that belong to a specific cluster. In step number 4, add the weighted scores of each component. Then the result will be the initial grade. So here in step number 4, we are now ready to get the initial grade of the student. So we just have to add the weighted scores of each of the component, and whatever the result will be, that would be the initial grade of a student. Take note that this is not a final. This is just the initial grade of a student because we are going to transmute it based again on the DepEd order number 5 or number 8. And the last step, transmute the initial grade using transmutation table in Appendix B as stated by the DepEd. The initial grade is 84.86, so the transmuted grade is 90%. And the quarterly grade in English for the first quarter of a student is 90, and this would reflect in the report card of a student. Now the table here is the transmission table based on the DepEd Memorandum Number 42, Series of 2020. Please take note that you just have to look at the initial class standing grade or the initial grade of a student and so that you can get transmuted grade. Now for MAPE, individual grades are given to each area, namely music, arts, physical education, and health. The quarterly grade for MAPE is the average of the quarterly grades in 4 areas. In mathematical equation, we can write quarterly grade for MAPE equals quarterly grade for music, for arts, plus for PE, plus for health, divided by 4, and there we can get the average grade or the average of the quarterly grades in the 4 areas of MAPE. Now in grade computation, the following is how the grades are computed based on the DepEd Order Number 8, Series of 2015. Now for kindergarten, there are no numerical grades in kindergarten. Descriptions of the learner's progress in various learning areas are represented using checklists and student portfolios. These are presented to the parents at the end of each quarter for discussion. Additional guidelines on the kindergarten program will be issued. Now for grades 1 to 10, the average of quarterly grades produces the final grade. So to get the final grades in grades 1 to 10, we just have to, in mathematical equation, final grade by learning area is equal to first quarter grade plus second quarter grade plus third quarter grade plus fourth quarter grade divided by 4, so that we can get the average of the quarterly grade of a student. Now the general average is computed by dividing the sum of all final grades by the total number of learning areas. Now each learning area has equal weight. Now the general average is equal to the sum of the final grades of all learning areas divided by the total number of learning areas in a grade level. The final grade in each learning and the general average are reported as whole numbers. In Table 7 to be followed shows an example of the final grades of the different learning areas and general average of a grade 4 student. So here is the Table 7, which says the final grades and the general average. So this is an example of a report card. To get the average grade of a student, we just have to add the initial grades per quarter. Of course, there are 4 quarters, then therefore to be divided by 4 to get the average grade of a student. The same goes to the following subjects. Now to get the general average, we just have to add the final grades per subject and then to be divided by how many subject component in a class. Now for senior high school or grades 11 and 12, the 2 quarters determine the final grade in a semester. Table 9 shows an example in grade 11, second semester for the accounting, business and management or ABM strand. Second semester, quarters 3 and 4, and the same process applies in these um, in these year levels. However, there are only two grades to be divided. And to get the average or the general average for the semester, we just have to add the final grades of every subject and then to be divided by how many subject component is or are there. So I think this is the end of my slides, and I hope that you are able to follow the instructions on how to compute and transpute the grades. Thank you for listening.